been a lineman for 8 years now, slinging wires and climbing poles all over central Kansas. It's not glamorous. People don't line up at parties to ask, "So, Miles, tell me about your thrilling adventures with transformers and power outages." But it's honest work, and it pays the bills. Mostly. Well, the bills that don't include designer coffee and obscure Pinterest boards. Anyway, my ex-wife, Gianna, and I had what looked like a good life in Wichita. I mean, on paper, it was all neat and tidy. I owned the house, bought it 2 years before we even met, and, thank God, kept the title in my name only. No surprises there. Gianna was a graphic designer. Freelance, mostly. She'd pull decent money doing logos for local businesses and the occasional website. Sometimes her income was a roller coaster. Other times, it felt like I was funding an art gallery out of pocket. Bills were split in a math-y kind of way. I handled the steady stuff, mortgage, utilities, insurance. She took care of groceries and her own business costs. If you squinted, it made sense. If you didn't squint, well, you'd probably have a panic attack over the volatility. Our routines were tighter than my squat form on leg day. I'd wake up at 5:30, hit the garage gym I'd built myself. It's basically a temple with a squat rack and enough Olympic weights to crush a small car. 45 minutes of squats, bench, deadlifts, and overhead press. Before most people were awake. Before coffee existed for mere mortals. Gianna never got it. "Why do you torture yourself so early?" she'd ask, scrolling Pinterest in her pajamas. She had this theory that a normal gym membership was somehow superior, which, to me, was adorable in the way someone might find a hamster doing algebra adorable. After my workout, we'd inevitably cross paths in the kitchen. Coffee for me, because apparently, I function like a sentient caffeine conduit. Fancy tea blend for her, because caffeine is apparently too pedestrian. I'd check the weather radar, important stuff, like tracking storms and judging how miserable my coworkers were today. She'd scroll design inspiration. Another logo for a pet boutique. I'd ask, raising an eyebrow. "Yep," she'd reply without looking up. "They really want the paw print to look soulful." I'd nod solemnly, as one does when discussing the emotional depth of cartoon dog paws, and then head out for work. She'd dive into her home office, caffeinated and ready to craft emotional paw logos all day. Evenings were nice, mostly. I'd get home around 4 o'clock unless a call-out pulled me into some electrical drama. Gianna would wrap up her work by 5. Then we'd walk Duke, my German Shepherd, dialed in because, unlike Gianna, I actually spent the first year of his life training him like a responsible dog parent. She had a habit of undermining the structure with treats for no reason. "Duke, sit," I'd command. "Good boy," Gianna would say, tossing a cookie. Duke would sit. Or not. Honestly, he was too polite to tell us the truth. Humans were hopeless. Duke came from a working-line breeder outside Salina. I picked him out at 6 weeks, brought him home at 8, and started structure training immediately. By 6 months, he had reliable sight, down, stay, come, and heel. Basically, he was the canine version of a Navy SEAL. Meanwhile, Gianna thought praise and cookies were the key to life. Life was stable. We had routines, split responsibilities, and didn't fight much, which I figured counted for something. Gianna seemed content with the setup, or at least she never complained directly. Indirectly, she might have tweeted about my obsessive gym rituals and lack of emotional flexibility, but who's counting? Anyway, that was us. A lineman, a designer, a hyper-disciplined dog, and a routine so predictable it could be programmed into an Excel spreadsheet. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, well, let's just say, sometimes perfection is boring in a comedic sort of way. The signs were subtle at first. She started checking her phone more during dinner, laughing at texts she wouldn't share, little inside jokes I wasn't part of. I didn't care, mostly because after 10 hours of switching out transformers or rearing some conductor, basically wrestling with electricity, I wasn't looking for drama. I just wanted to eat, walk Duke, and collapse like a normal human. Then she started talking about Jackson more. Jackson, her childhood best friend from high school. He'd moved back to Wichita with his wife, Emily. Gianna was all sparkly-eyed about reconnecting, which seemed fine. Old friends moved back. Want to catch up. Nothing earth-shattering. "Hey, Miles, they want us to come over Tuesday. Dinner," she said one night, scrolling Pinterest like it was her second job. "Dinner, huh?" I replied, lifting my mug of coffee like it contained wisdom. "You mean social interaction instead of staring at a screen and talking to yourself?" She laughed. "Come on, it'll be fun. You'll like them." I nodded. "Sure, why not?" I'd meet this Jackson guy and his wife, see what all the hype was about. Their place was across town in Riverside, one of those cookie-cutter developments with yards so small you could probably throw a frisbee across them without leaving the porch. Jackson answered the door, and my first thought, desk job. Average height, designer jeans, hair clearly sculpted by someone with more free time than sense. The handshake was firm, but soft. Palms like silk. Nails manicured. Guy looked exactly like what he was. A marketing professional who'd never so much as touched a wrench. Emily was quiet and polite. Nice smile. But her eyes didn't match it. There was this little flicker. Maybe judgment. Maybe boredom. Maybe she could sense the difference between someone who fixes transformers for a living and someone who takes team synergy way too seriously. And Gianna. Oh, Gianna. Hand on Jackson's arm, laughing at something he said, leaning just a hair too close. My internal monologue. Yep. Totally innocent. Nothing to see here. Keep chewing your steak, Miles. Dinner started out normal. Jackson went on about his tech startup. Something about disrupting the synergy of user interfaces, or some corporate mumbo-jumbo that could have been translated as, I stare at a computer all day, collect stock options. Emily told us she was a CPA with her own small practice. I nodded. Taxes are important. I said my line about keeping the lights on when Mother Nature throws a tantrum. Very heroic, very lineman. Gianna jumped in with stories about me getting called out at 3 a.m., making it sound like I was battling storms and wolves simultaneously, instead of just unclogging a blown fuse. I chuckled politely. Yeah, that's thrilling, I said. Gianna gave me a side-eye smile. You were amazing, Miles. Uh-huh, I said, taking another bite. Amazing, huh? Guess that's one way to sugarcoat your husband's exhaustion. Then, here's where things got weird. Gianna and Jackson had this little ritual where every sentence was a secret handshake in words. Remember when we... And then some memory that apparently erased the existence of everyone else in the room. High school this, college that, like Emily and I were just very polite pieces of furniture. Every story ended with them laughing while Emily stared at her plate like she was contemplating using it as a frisbee. Gianna would grab his wrist to emphasize a point. He'd nudge her shoulder when telling a story. Innocent enough on paper, but my gut was waving a giant red flag. You know the feeling. Like your stomach suddenly became a very rude Yelp reviewer. I started paying more attention. Emily excused herself to the bathroom twice. And both times, Gianna barely noticed. Not that I'm counting. Oh wait, I totally was. Then Emily's responses started shrinking like a wool sweater in hot water. When Gianna complimented Jackson's cooking, Emily muttered something about him never cooking when it was just the two of them. Tiny details. Harmless in isolation. But when you start stacking them like a Jenga tower, well, suddenly the tower wobbles. After dinner, Jackson suggested we check out their back deck. Instantly, Gianna linked arms with him like they were in a cheesy romance movie, leaving Emily and me trailing behind. I found myself talking to her about property taxes. Riveting conversation, right? But Emily was genuinely engaged. She asked questions about my work, like actual questions that weren't about how cute my abs are or the hypothetical emotional depth of a paw print. When you do those mutual aid deployments, she asked, how do crews coordinate across state lines? Different utility standards? 16-hour shifts in disaster zones. I shrugged, trying to keep it casual. It's satisfying. Fixing something that thousands of people depend on. Better than sitting in meetings about meetings. She laughed. Actually laughed. Like real human laughter. Meanwhile, Gianna and Jackson were in their own bubble, orbiting each other like planets on a sweet, suburban gravitational pull. Then Jackson's phone buzzed. Gianna peeked at the screen like it was the most normal thing in the world, like checking a text was some kind of shared ritual for besties. My gut. It went from red flag to full-on siren. Emily and I made eye contact for a second. No words needed. That, oh, we're both seeing this kind of glance. Mutual acknowledgement of the weirdness in the air. The drive home? Quiet. Gianna stared out the window, that little smile playing on her lips like she was in a rom-com I hadn't been cast in. What do you think of Emily? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual, like I wasn't dying a little inside. She shrugged, twirling her teaspoon. She's fine. A little uptight, maybe. Jackson says she works too much. I raised an eyebrow. Uh-huh. And what about Jackson? He's exactly like I remembered. Funny, smart, easy to talk to. I'm so glad he moved back to Wichita. I said nothing. My gut was sending me urgent telegrams. Red alert. Red alert. Over the next few weeks, the pattern became obvious. Gianna started staying up late on her phone, helping Jackson with design projects. Funny thing about design work, it doesn't usually require midnight texting. But sure, let's pretend they're rebranding the entire Fortune 500 by 2 a.m. Morning coffee became an audition of sneakiness. She'd laugh at her screen, then slam her phone shut like a magician hiding a rabbit. Just memes, she'd mutter, as if memes could explain away 1,000 little gut punches. Then came the second dinner, 2 weeks later. Our place this time. The dynamic? Same as before. Gianna and Jackson in their own private orbit, Emily and I talking about property taxes, municipal ordinances, or literally anything except the obvious elephant in the room. They're thinking about a weekend trip to Denver, Emily said casually. Jackson's eyes lit up. Hey, you guys should come along. It'll be so fun. Just like old times. Gianna practically glowed like Christmas morning. I, on the other hand, glared at my mashed potatoes like they'd betrayed me personally. After they left, Gianna spent an hour texting. Who's that? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm instead of turning it into a full-blown interrogation. Jackson. He's sending me photos from the high school reunion, she said, smiling innocently. They need immediate responses, obviously. I sighed. Deep, soul-weary sigh. Then came the breaking point. Miles, she announced one evening, practically bouncing. I'm going to help Jackson pick out a birthday gift for Emily. Alone? I asked. Yes, just the two of us. Saturday afternoon. He says you have such great taste, and Emily's so hard to shop for. I blinked. Hallmark should really start selling cards for situations like this. Sorry I'm emotionally cheating with your husband, but look at this thoughtful necklace we picked out together. I pointed out, gently, like I was suggesting a minor plumbing repair, that maybe Emily would prefer to pick out her own gift. Or, wild idea, maybe we could all go together. Gianna rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. Miles, you're being weird about my friendship. Jackson and I have always been close. You knew that when you married me. Yeah, I knew they were friends. I just didn't realize friends now included solo shopping dates, hours of whispered strategy over necklaces, and midnight design consultations. Friends who apparently required coffee breaks at 3 different hipster cafes just to discuss fonts. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't he say anything? And I stayed quiet, mostly because I wanted to see how far she'd go. Maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't the problem here. The shopping trip was the catalyst, sure, but the explosion came later that week. Gianna spent 6 hours with Jackson picking out Emily's gift. 6 hours. She came home with bags from stores I didn't even know existed, and immediately locked herself in the bathroom for an hour. When she came out, new hair, new perfume, new everything. And lingerie. Expensive stuff. I blinked. Trying to feel better about yourself? I asked cautiously, like I was defusing a bomb. Yeah, she said, twirling. Sometimes new lingerie helps with confidence. Right. Of course. Because that's a totally normal activity for married women. Buying lingerie to boost confidence after spending a full day shopping with other women's husbands. I'm pretty sure Victoria's Secret has a whole section for that demographic. Confidence and emotional cheating. Lingerie edition. How was the shopping? I asked, voice deliberately casual, as if I didn't care about the 6-hour excursion. Oh great. We found the perfect necklace for Emily. Jackson has such good taste, she gushed, launching into a play-by-play. Lunch at some trendy downtown cafe. Browsing boutiques I'd never heard of. Stopping for coffee at 3 different shops because, apparently, cute seats make gift shopping more meaningful. Sounded like a date to me. But hey, what do I know? That's when the argument started. I suggested maybe Gianna could include Emily more in their friendship activities, since she clearly seemed uncomfortable. Gianna snapped. Emily's just jealous. She doesn't have a close friendship like Jackson and me. Not everyone understands how special our connection is. Special connection. Right. I'm sure that's what they're calling it these days. I tried a different angle, thinking maybe diplomacy would work. What if we did more double dates? I suggested cautiously, like I was offering a peace treaty. You know, something that actually involves all 4 of us, instead of you and Jackson having private conversations while Emily and I become background scenery. Gianna rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get lodged in the back of her skull. Oh my God, Miles. So now you're insecure because I have a male friend? We're in the 21st century. Grow up. I raised both hands, palms out, like I was defusing a bomb with sarcasm. It's not about male friends. It's about boundaries and respect. You're acting like his girlfriend, not his friend. Her mask slipped faster than a transformer on a greasy pole. Maybe if you put half as much effort into our relationship as Jackson does, I wouldn't need to get emotional support from someone else, she snapped. I blinked again, then slowly, deliberately, said, emotional support from a married man. The argument escalated over the next hour like a storm on the plains. She accused me of being controlling, jealous, threatened by Jackson's success. I tried reasoning. Success doesn't usually require midnight texting sessions with married women. She countered like a seasoned lawyer. You don't understand their history, their bond, their special dynamic. We've been through everything together, breakups, college stress, family drama. He knows me better than anyone, including your husband. I couldn't help it. Your person, while married to someone else. while his wife sits in our living room making awkward conversation because her husband is too busy being someone else's person to notice her discomfort. I tried logic one more time. How would you feel if I had a female friend I texted until midnight, went on solo shopping trips with, and called my person? Her deflection was immediate and textbook. That's completely different. Jackson and I have been friends for 15 years. We're not doing anything wrong. So, why does Emily look miserable every time we hang out? Oh, she's just insecure and controlling. Jackson says she gets jealous of all his friendships. Jackson says, right, of course. Because when you're emotionally cheating, it's totally valid to blame the wife of the other man. And that, my friends, was the final straw. 3 days later. So there it was. Gianna dropped the bomb like a mic at the end of a terrible performance. I'm going to a concert with Jackson, she announced, casual as if she were telling me she needed more milk. Some band I'd never heard of, playing downtown. And Emily? I asked cautiously, trying not to sound like a lunatic. She's not invited, Gianna said, flipping her hair like it wasn't a big deal. She doesn't like their music and would just complain the whole time. Oh, I was done. Done. When married people go to concerts together, you know, in the context of being married, that's usually weird. But when your spouse goes with another married person and their partner gets left at home, well, that's a new level of crazy. Listen, Gianna, I said, keeping my voice calm while my internal monologue screamed, don't lose it, don't lose it, okay, maybe lose it just a little. If you think I'm stupid here, you're dead wrong. I've been patient. I've been understanding. But this is too much. You don't get to control who I'm friends with, she said, like I tried to ban Jackson from life. Jackson has been there for me through everything. Never let me down. Never made me feel bad. Never tried to change me. I waited for her to blink. She didn't. Apparently, I was guilty of all the things she just listed for Jackson. Never mind that I'd never once asked her to change, never criticized her career, never made her feel bad, except maybe about her inability to train Duke. He understands me in ways you never will, she said, eyes dreamy. We have a connection that goes deeper than anything else in my life. He's not just my friend, he's my soulmate. I stayed calm, smiled a little actually. Oh really? And where does that leave us, roommates? Her answer hit me like a 240-volt surge straight to the heart. He was here before you came into my life. He will always be more important than you. So stop being an insecure jerk. There it was. The truth. Months of dancing around, making me feel crazy for noticing, distilled into one sentence. I wasn't her husband. I was the guy who paid half the bills while she played house with someone else's spouse. I just nodded. Good to know. The room went silent. I could see her confusion. She expected drama. Expected me to beg, argue, maybe try to compete with Jackson for her attention. What do you mean? She asked, eyes narrowing. I mean what I said. I replied evenly. It's good to know where I stand here. Right? So now you're going to play victim and make me feel guilty for wanting to have fun with my best friend, she said, voice dripping with something. And I smiled. Oh, I smiled. Gianna, conversation's over. Go and have fun. I mean it. She stared at me for a long, confused second. Then, finally, she walked out. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled out my phone. Checked my bank account, made mental notes, and started planning for my next move. She'd made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. The next morning, Gianna acted like nothing had happened. She brewed her fancy tea, scrolled through her phone, and, of course, texted Jackson good morning, while I sipped my coffee like a man whose entire life had just been relegated to background scenery. She probably thought she'd won, that I'd accepted my place as the backup option to her soulmate. Newsflash, Gianna, I don't do backup. Time to handle this like a business. And my business with her? Done. I went quiet for 2 weeks. Not brooding or feeling sorry for myself. Nope. Planning. Strategizing. Thinking like a lineman. Except instead of wires, I was untangling the chaos of my soon-to-be ex-wife's financial shenanigans. First, Kansas divorce law. I spent my lunch breaks at the Wichita Public Library, diving into divorce statutes and case law like I was preparing to write the definitive book on how to beat your cheating ex in 3 easy steps. Kansas is an equitable distribution state, not community property. Translation, judges have discretion. The house, mine, bought before marriage. Title clean, sweet victory, and no-fault divorce? Perfect. I didn't have to prove adultery, just incompatibility. But documenting financial misconduct could still tip the scales in my favor. Every dollar Gianna spent on her friendship was a dollar she took from our joint account for activities that conveniently excluded me. First stop, my bank. Opened a new individual account at a different bank. Started tracking every deposit, my paychecks, her freelance payments, where the money came from, where it went. Couldn't just drain our joint account. That's theft. But I could protect my contributions with proper documentation. Analyzing the joint account was like reading a story. My paychecks went in like clockwork. Predictable. Reliable. Like a good lineman. Gianna's deposits? All over the place. Her spending? Consistent. Restaurants I'd never been to. Clothing stores I hadn't heard of. Charges for Kansas City on weekends when she claimed to be homework. The second stop, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Ron Jeremy. Family law specialist. Years of experience. Reputation so solid, some people whispered his name like he was a mythical god of divorce. Honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if he had a secret DJ alter ego. And oh, he did. Saturdays, neon lights, spinning beats at Club Equitable, while weekdays he demolished cheating spouses in court like a mythical hitman in a tailored suit. I showed up at his office, and he didn't even need to glance at me. "Miles," he said, voice low and commanding. "Kansas is no fault. Equitable distribution of marital assets. Separate property stays separate, if you can prove it. Document everything." I raised an eyebrow. Everything. Communication, financial transactions, any evidence of dissipation of marital assets, he said, leaning back like he owned the sun. The courts don't care why your marriage failed, but they do care if someone wasted marital money on inappropriate activities. Inappropriate activities, I thought. Like concerts and shopping trips with other women's husbands? Bingo. I started screenshotting Gianna's texts whenever she left her phone lying around, documenting the financial impact of her friendship. Credit card statements told the story. $150 dinners at upscale restaurants on nights I was eating leftover casserole at home. Concert tickets for $200 purchased on the same day. She claimed she was too tired to go out with me. Week 3, something interesting happened. Emily texted me. "Hi Miles. This might be weird, but do you have time to talk? I'm starting to feel crazy, and you're the only other person who might understand what I'm seeing." We met for coffee. She looked tired, stressed, the sort of look people get after months of gaslighting themselves into believing that maybe they are crazy. "I'm not paranoid, right?" she asked, eyes wide. "The way they act around each other, it isn't normal friendship behavior." I took a deep breath and told her everything. Gianna's soulmate comment, that she'd informed me Jackson would always be more important than me. Emily's face went white. Literally, I thought she might have turned into one of those chalkboard ghosts for a second. "She said that to your face." "Word for word," Emily whispered, staring at her coffee like it might start talking back. I frowned. "Jackson said that." Emily nodded. "He's been different for months. Secretive, always on his phone, making plans without including me. When I ask about it, he says I'm being controlling and that Gianna is just a friend who needs support." "Support for what?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Her unhappy marriage," Emily said, voice tight. "Apparently, according to Jackson, you don't appreciate her and she feels unheard in the relationship." I nearly choked on my espresso. "Unheard? Really? That was rich." "There's something else," she continued, leaning in like she was about to drop the plot twist of the century. "We have a prenup. My family insisted on it before we married because I inherited property from my grandmother. If Jackson files for divorce, he gets minimal alimony and no claim on my separate assets. But if I file, I keep everything and he gets standard spousal support for maybe 2 years max." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, eyebrow raised. "Because," she said, steel creeping into her spine like she'd forged it herself, "if they're doing what I think they're doing, I want them to face consequences. And if Gianna thinks she's getting a fairy tale ending with Jackson, she should know what his financial situation will look like after I'm done with him." I nodded. I liked her spine. Solid. Impressive. "Plus," she added with a dry smile that could slice through steel, "I'm tired of being the only adult in a room full of teenagers playing house." I smirked. "Don't worry. You're not alone in this." We agreed to keep each other informed if we discovered anything concrete. 2 days later, Gianna announced she was taking a girls' weekend trip to Kansas City. Funny thing, she didn't mention which girl she was going with. When I asked, she got defensive. "I need space to think about us," she said, tone sweet and venomous at the same time. "Maybe some time apart will help you realize what you are doing to our marriage because of your insecurities." I played along perfectly. "You're right, Gianna. Maybe I should think about it." Then I helped her pack, carried her bag to the car, smiled, waved, told her to have fun. She blinked a few times, clearly confused by my lack of drama, then drove off anyway. About 4 hours later, my phone buzzed. "Emily." I opened the message and nearly spilled my coffee. A photo. Gianna's car. In the parking lot of some downtown Kansas City hotel. Jackson's car. 2 spaces away. "Girls' weekend," Emily wrote. "Guess the girls include my husband." Well, that was it. That was all the evidence I needed. My stomach did a little victory dance. I forwarded the photo to Ron, because of course, Ron Jeremy, my mythical divorce hitman DJ hybrid, was already my go-to. Attached a note. Please prepare the paperwork. I'll bring you financial documentation on Monday. Gianna came home Sunday night, bags in hand, stories about spa treatments, girl talk, laughing like she'd just solved some major life problem. In a way, she had. Just differently than she intended. Emily, on the other hand, was fast. Monday morning, she did the unthinkable. Checked Jackson's phone while he was in the shower. Found hotel receipts, restaurant charges, and texts that left zero doubt about what their friendship had turned into. I listened over the phone as she read some of them to me. You understand me like no one else. I wish I'd married you instead. From my wife's husband. Dated last Thursday. Emily snapped photos of everything before Jackson could even finish shampooing. Bank statements showing hotel charges, restaurant receipts, even a jewelry purchase. I recognized the gift Gianna had helped Jackson pick out for Emily, except it wasn't for Emily. The receipt clearly showed Gianna's ring size. I'm filing today, Emily said, voice tight with satisfaction. My lawyer says we can serve him this afternoon. How's your timeline looking? Tomorrow, I replied. I want them both served on the same day. Tuesday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Gianna was probably deep in her home office, texting Jackson about their next secret weekend getaway. I, on the other hand, was in the garage, organizing tools like a man who still believed in the dignity of a properly arranged socket set. The doorbell rang. Miles, can you get that? Gianna called from the kitchen. I ignored her. Too busy. Besides, I could hear the voices through the kitchen window. She was arguing. Over papers. Yeah, papers. Hi hey, the process server. Ma'am, refusal to accept service doesn't prevent legal service. The guy explained, calm as a monk. Gianna's voice got higher, closer to a banshee. Reality was clearly hitting her in all the wrong ways. The server stayed professional. Explained the documents. Answered her questions politely. Made it very clear. Throwing papers at him would not make them vanish. By the time she stormed into the garage, Gianna had been thoroughly schooled in the mechanics of legal service. She practically burst through the doorway, clutching the divorce papers like they were a grenade, face red with equal parts anger and shock. What the hell is this, Miles? She demanded. I didn't even look up from my tool bench. Paperwork, I said. For dissolution of marriage due to incompatibility. What the hell is wrong with you? You can't just divorce me without warning. I shrugged. My bad. I'll notify you next time. That didn't go over well. She threw something at me. I think it was a decorative wrench. Maybe not. Then she started yelling. You are such a jerk. I can't believe you're doing this to me. How dare you? I snapped. After years of marriage, you throw everything away because you're such an insecure little. She gasped, but I cut her off. You still got the nerve to lie to my face. Listen here, you jerk. Don't think you can fool me. I know everything. I saw everything. So, watch your damn mouth. You don't get to talk anymore. Understood. She went silent. Then, predictably, the waterworks started. I leaned back, dusting my hands off. My lawyer will handle all communication from here. She broke down. Full on, Oscar-worthy crying. No, Miles, please listen. Whatever you think you saw is absolutely fake. I would never. I cut her off with a calm, casual shrug. Jackson's getting served right about now, too. Emily found some interesting photos on his phone. Her face went white. Literally ghost white. Like she was auditioning for a horror movie. No, that shit. She must have sent you Photoshop things. Miles, please listen to me. She's jealous of me. I blinked at her. Blinked again. You are making yourself look even more pathetic now. We're done. What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? Please don't be so cruel, she whimpered. I shrugged again. Figure it out. You've got your soulmate to help with logistics. That seemed to hit home. She left that night to stay with her sister. Within 24 hours, the flying monkeys started circling. Her sister called, controlling jerk. Her friend Megan texted paragraphs about what a huge mistake I was making. Even her mom called, lecturing me about abandoning my wife during a difficult time. Did I respond? Nope, not a single word. Changed my number, blocked them all on social media, and let Ron handle any communication that actually mattered. The interesting part? Jackson and Gianna, after their secret was out, instead of hiding, they went public immediately. Gianna moved in with Jackson within a week. Facebook became a shrine to their teenage rebel romance. Couple photos everywhere. Check-ins at restaurants, brunch selfies, all the classic look at us, the world is ours antics. Acting like teenage rebels who'd finally found true love. Problem was, Jackson's divorce wasn't finalized. Emily's prenup meant he was about to lose his cushy lifestyle, and Gianna's divorce meant she was about to lose her comfortable house. Two people who'd built this fantasy around a forbidden romance suddenly had to face reality, starting over together with limited resources. The fairy tale was about to meet the real world. And let's just say, the real world doesn't accept fairy dust as currency. 3 months post-filing, my life had structure again. Real structure. None of that performative routine of pretending to be married to someone whose heart clearly belonged to another man. Work was steady, satisfying, and actually paid well. Storm season hit, and I was deployed across Kansas and Oklahoma on mutual aid assignments. 2 weeks in Joplin after a tornado outbreak, 12-hour shifts, sweat, grime, and enough overtime to make my post-divorce savings account look positively smug. My supervisor noticed the change. "You've been more focused lately," he said during my quarterly review. "Whatever stuff you were dealing with, looks like you sorted it out." Promotion followed. Lead lineman on my crew. Better pay. First pick of overtime. Basically, my adulting badge was upgraded. Physical training became my religion. My garage gym, that little temple of iron and self-discipline, saw daily worship. Numbers climbed steadily, like my patience had been compressed into steel plates. All that consistency came from finally having unlimited time to focus on myself. Kind of refreshing after months of trying to decode what "everything's fine" actually meant. Some days I lifted angry. Some days I lifted tired. Some days I just stared at the bar like it owed me an apology. But every morning at 5:30, I showed up and moved weight until my head was clear. Duke thrived with all the extra attention. We worked obedience daily, sit, down, heel, place, until he was basically a canine Navy SEAL. Introduced him to an e-collar system and spent weeks conditioning him properly. Now he could hold a place command for 20 minutes while I worked in the garage, and his recall was instant, even with squirrels, mailmen, or random geese trying to ruin his life. The dog needed daily mileage, so we started running together. 3 miles became 5, 5 became 7. He loved the routine, and I loved the mental reset of putting one foot in front of the other until my brain stopped churning over Gianna's little performance art of betrayal. 5 months after filing, I bought the Indian Scout bobber I'd been obsessing over, black on black, mid-controls, Vance and Hines slip-ons, tail tidy that cleaned up the rear end. Took the MSF course, got proper gear, and started exploring Kansas back roads on weekends. The Scout was perfect for this flat, endless state. Torque enough to pass anything on the highway, comfy enough for all-day trips, and reliable enough that I never had to worry about being stranded in the middle of nowhere. Indian had nailed the build quality, and that 1,133 cubic centimeters engine, perfect V-twin rumble. Therapy in mechanical form. Weekend rides became my reset button. No destination, just farm roads through the Flint Hills, stopping at small-town diners with strong coffee and conversations that didn't require me decoding subtext or suspicious side glances. Money flowed differently now. No more joint credit card charges for restaurants I'd never been to, boutique shopping sprees, or mysterious weekend trips labeled girls only. My individual account grew steadily while Gianna and Jackson slowly learned just how expensive true love actually was. Through Emily and a few mutual friends, I got updates about their little romantic saga. Jackson's divorce. Exactly what Emily had warned. Spousal support, legal fees, zero claim on her family property. He looked like he was starring in a reality show called Love and Bankruptcy. Gianna's freelance income couldn't even cover their new apartment rent. So, Jackson was working overtime to support 2 households while his divorce finalized. Secret hotel weekends lose their charm pretty fast when you're splitting grocery bills and arguing over whose turn it is to pay the electric. Who could have predicted that? Certainly not the Hallmark card writers. The surprising twist? Emily. 6 weeks after Jackson moved out, she texted me. Coffee. Not to rehash the past, not to plot revenge, just because she was bored. And apparently, I was one of the few humans who actually understood how absurd this situation was. Coffee became a regular thing. She was smart, funny in a dry way, and refreshingly uninterested in the melodrama of old relationships. We talked about work, movies, places we wanted to travel, and Duke's training progress. Normal adult conversations. Emily had started her own CPA practice post-divorce, focusing on small business clients who actually appreciated her insane attention to detail. 8 months post-divorce, we officially started dating. Slow and steady. Coffee dates became lunch dates. Lunch dates became dinner dates. Dinner dates became weekend plans that included dog parks, bookstores, and motorcycle rides through the Flint Hills. She fit on the back of the Scout like she was born there, asked good questions about the bike, appreciated the engineering, never complained about the wind, noise, or distance. Chemistry was real. Meanwhile, Gianna and Jackson were discovering that, as romantic as true love sounds, it doesn't exactly pay the bills or magically resolve fundamental incompatibilities. Through the grapevine, I kept hearing that Gianna and Jackson were still fighting, money, future plans, whose fault it was that divorces apparently cost more than a small country. Background noise. I had better things to do. Work, training, and relationships that didn't make me question my sanity. I was living my best life. 10 months after filing, the divorce was nearly final. Ron, my mythical divorce god slash DJ hitman combo, handled everything cleanly. I kept the house, Duke, and my retirement accounts. Gianna got her sad little business, her car, and whatever fairy tale she'd been constructing with Jackson. No alimony. Exactly the break I wanted. Emily and I were solid. No drama, no secret hotel weekends. Just two people enjoying each other's company and building something real. Weekends at my place became the norm, and Duke had fully adopted her. That dog has a sixth sense for human decency. Then Friday night happened. My buddy Cooper suggested checking out a new downtown spot. Live music, decent food, good for catching up. Emily brought her friend Meredith. Cooper had been trying to meet her for months, and somehow we became the matchmaking consultants. As we sat down before the girls arrived, Cooper fidgeted. Bro, I'm kind of nervous. What do I say first? Cooper, are you serious right now? Don't act all coy and shy. Shut up, Miles. I just don't want to look cringy. Well, you kind of are, I teased. Screw you. You're welcome, I said, because helping friends is part of my civic duty. Emily and Meredith showed up, and things were going smoothly. We'd been there maybe an hour when someone walked in. Guess who? Yep, Gianna. She looked rough, tired, stressed, like she'd been whirled around in a blender and spat out the other side. Hair shorter, cheaper color job, weight she probably shouldn't have lost. The confident woman who once proclaimed Jackson her soulmate had been replaced by someone who looked like she was barely holding it together. Gianna spotted our table like she had a homing device for my misery and made a beeline over. Emily tensed beside me. Cooper muttered under his breath, "Oh, never been better. Bad timing." Meredith looked at me like I'd ordered a side of chaos with our drinks. "Miles, I need to talk to you," Gianna said, skipping the whole hello nonsense. "Please, just 5 minutes." "We're busy here," I replied, scanning the room like I hadn't already spotted the stress tornado heading my way. "It's not about the divorce. It's something else, something important," she insisted. Her voice had that strained, quivering quality, the public crying at a bar kind. "Fine," I said, pretending to sigh. "You've got 5 minutes." We walked to an empty corner near the back bar. Gianna was shaking slightly, and I had a front row seat to the panic show. "Jackson's in trouble," she started. "Real trouble. The police came to our apartment yesterday. There are charges. Federal charges." I raised an eyebrow. "Uh-huh. Pray tell." "Tax evasion," she whispered. "His company, involved in some scheme with fake contractors and unreported income. The FBI raided his office last week. His lawyer says he's looking at possible prison time." I nodded slowly. "Well, that's something." She gulped. And I'm pregnant, Miles. 2 months. Cue the dramatic pause. She was crying now, keeping her voice low like she thought the bartender and the jazz trio were undercover agents. "He's been different since the pregnancy. Talking about running. Says the charges are bogus and he won't go to prison for something that wasn't his fault. But if he runs, I'm stuck here alone with a baby and no support." I said nothing. She leaned in, desperation painted all over her face. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you and destroyed our marriage for something that turned out to be a fantasy. But you're a good man, Miles. You're stable and responsible, and you always took care of me. Maybe we could try again. Maybe this baby could be a fresh start for us." I kid you not. She actually said that. Looked at me like I might magically produce sympathy from thin air. Like I'd say, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll take care of it." This woman, who had thrown away our marriage for a criminal in waiting, was now pitching me a sequel. Raise another man's kid because her soulmate had turned out to be unreliable. The response came easily. "And how does any of that concern me?" I said, shrugging like she'd asked me to balance her checkbook or babysit a feral raccoon. Gianna's face crumpled, like I'd just handed her a math test in Hebrew. "What do you mean? You made your choice. Got knocked up by your bestie who is apparently going to bail. And you want me to fix it for you? Bitch, you got pumped and dumped. Congratulations." Her voice got that high, desperate squeak. But I was wrong. I see that now. I made a huge mistake. "Good job, you have some brain cells working," I said, nodding like a TED Talk speaker. "That mistake is yours to live with, not mine to fix." Her mouth opened, like she was about to argue, but all that came out was a strangled, "You can't just." "Yes, I dumped you. Without any remorse. The same way I flush every morning," I said, pivoting on my heel and starting back toward our table. Gianna followed, voice getting louder, drawing attention like a circus act with bad timing. "You're really going to let your pregnant ex-wife struggle alone? What kind of man does that? I stopped mid-step, turned around, hands raised in a checkmate gesture. Pregnant ex-wife who is carrying her best friend's baby, who is more important than her ex-husband. Come on, any logical man will walk away from that catastrophe. Her desperation curdled into anger fast. You're pathetic. You never fought for our marriage. You just gave up like a coward. Cue perfect timing. Emily appeared at my side. Calm, composed, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Gianna's wardrobe in its entirety. Not possessive, not trying to steal the spotlight, just present. Everything okay here? Emily asked, casually surveying the chaos like she was watching a mildly entertaining nature documentary. Gianna's eyes darted between us, finally realizing this wasn't a temporary rebound or some power move. Emily and I were serious. Together, building something real while Gianna's fantasy life crumbled around her. Seriously? Gianna gasped. Her? You're dating her just to get back at us? Nope. I don't even think about you, Emily said with the kind of calm authority that made Gianna's knees wobble. Gianna, we're just enjoying life here. That's when she completely lost it. She started screaming like a fire alarm with anger issues. I mean full Shakespearean meltdown. Vindictive, cruel, manipulative. Emily was a manipulative bitch who'd stolen her husband's best friend. And we were both pathetic for finding each other through shared misery. I swear, by the time she got to calling Cooper a frenemy enabler, security had eyes on us like we were hosting a rock concert in a library. Cooper, bless him, whipped out his phone faster than a kid spotting free candy. This is golden, he muttered, recording every word. A security guard approached, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice or leave. I'm not going anywhere until I get some answers, she bellowed, arms flailing like she was conducting an invisible orchestra of rage. Actually, you are, Cooper said cheerfully, still filming. Keep your hormonal ass away from here. Security gently, but firmly, escorted her toward the exit, and Gianna continued her soliloquy on the walk of shame. She lectured us on karma, how we'd regret our choices, and how Jackson was supposedly twice the man I'd ever be, even if he was about to spend some quality time with federal prison decor. The bar went quiet for a good 10 seconds, like the universe itself paused to process that level of chaos. Then the murmur of conversation gradually returned, and the band kicked back in, probably oblivious to the human hurricane that had just cleared the room. Cooper plopped down beside me, phone still recording. Damn, I'm sending this to the boys. They're going to lose it. He chuckled like we just witnessed a reality TV finale live. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, the Gianna saga ended. Door closed. Echoes of dramatic wails fading. Never heard from her again. I honestly hope she's having fun as a single mom. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.